proper phone review before, or not even a phone review for that case. But after the overwhelming response for the tab review that you guys gave, I thought I might do one. So I've got a sort of brand new phone here, and this is the Realme 8 Pro. So today I'm gonna be reviewing this phone right here, and as you might have seen in the title, it's not very overwhelming. It's kind of boring, but at the same time, it's in a weird but okay state. So this is the full review of the Realme 8 Pro. So this phone right here is the Realme 8 Pro, and I've been using this over 1 to 2 weeks now, and my opinions are actually just narrow because as you can see, this is not that exciting already from like the normal thing, and this is a mid-range phone in 2021, so you already know what to expect, but at the same time it does something that is actually a little bit above your expectations, and I'm okay, fine with that. But as an overall package, I'd say this is not what you should actually be going for, but it's certainly not a bad phone. Let me explain. So let's start off with the display, alright? So the display is a 6.4 inch Super AMOLED panel, and it already has like 1000 nits of brightness as well. So it's a very bright and sharp and a crispy panel, and like the colors are really great. So what more do I crave over here? Well, as you know, frame rate is king, and sadly Realme just gave 60 Hz, and I'm not like really complaining over here, but Realme could have taken a step like what Xiaomi did with the Mi 10T Pro, where like they took a LCD panel but gave it like 144 Hz, and that is sick as hell. But at the same time, like the panel wasn't really great. So what Realme could have done over here is like compromised a little bit on the panel, but like boosted the refresh rate to like, I don't know, 90 Hz or 120 Hz. I'm not even asking for 44 Hz. The lack of refresh rate just doesn't make things seem smooth over here. But at the same time, like kudos to Realme for actually giving like a Super AMOLED panel. I still like it. So what does the phone run on? So as you can know, it's just like the normal drill for like all mid-range devices. Snapdragon 720G, check. Android 11 with some other like overlay with like overlay of ColorOS 11 and an overlay of Realme UI 2.0. So there's all of that. And as you know, Realme is not the great thing. It's just like Oppo, it gives like really artistic looks, but at the same time, greeted by bloatware world. So yes, there is a lot of bloatware. There's this thing called hot apps or like hot pics and all of that. There's a ton of bloatware, and there has been like a small ad pushing as well, which I have seen it, and it's really quirky and I hate it at the most. So Realme UI is not the way to go for it, just so you know. But hey, I'm stuck with them. If you ever buy a Realme phone, you're stuck with Realme UI. So the Snapdragon 720G is actually also a letdown because the same chipset was also used in its predecessor, the Realme 7 Pro as well. So nobody actually wants to see the same chipset used again and again and again unless it's actually too powerful. So they could have actually like moved on to like a 750G or like a 765G because like they're already over a year old. Like 765G are already old. Or they could have actually stepped up their game to, I don't know, maybe even a 732G used in like the Poco X3. And it's a really good thing as well, but Realme didn't do that, so it's all fine. The 720G isn't a letdown at all, but the problem is that it's just fine. Like you need to be like really competitive when it comes to like the mid-range market. It's all about how less you give and how more you take. So we've talked about all of that. How's the build quality? As you know, like it's the same drill for every mid-range phone. So you see like the build is like the back is plastic, the frame is plastic, but like the front is glass. But it's not Gorilla Glass and it doesn't have any certifications, considering that the 7 Pro actually came with some Corning Gorilla Glass specification. So that is also a big letdown, considering that people actually care about that, because that actually gives how much there is like the scratch resistance or like the drop resistance. So there's all that. So it actually like feels good in the hand because it has a matte texture on the back. But at the same time, like if it's not glass, and I'm happy that it's not trying to be like one of those like fingerprinty plastic or like plastic as they advertise. It's not something like that. I'm just happy that it's like normal plastic and it's embracing the fact that it's plastic. So it's really nice and grippy as well. The one thing I really hate is that it has that like kind of like the thing. It also has like kind of like the big fat and bold text called Dare to Leap, and you don't want people to actually see you around with like that big bold text, and people are gonna be like, oh, what's that phone? What? Well, it's written Dare to Leap, and I don't think like actually like people should actually have it, because like it just makes the phone's back even more uglier. Already it's really good with the grip, but they could have just eradicated like the whole big fat text. And there's also like Realme on the corner as well, so there's just like too much of text on the back. And then there's 108 megapixel, and then there's quad camera, quad in quotes. So it's just too much of text on the back, and it makes the phone look ugly. But I did ask a lot of other people, and they didn't seem to care because they already had a case for it. So guess we're the only ones who's nitpicking then. So what else is there? So we saw the display. We saw the build quality. What is Realme making a big brag about? The cameras. So the cameras, as you see, like it's a quad camera setup with like a 108 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel wide angle, a 2 megapixel depth, or 5 megapixel macro, or just the other way around, because like they keep doing the same thing again and again and again, and it's just too repetitive and boring. Because every time, yes, everybody's gonna be like, the main camera shoots really nice and decent pictures, and it's all like nice and beautiful, it's nice and crisp, it is actually very usable and decent. The ultra-wide, however, has like a little bit of a letdown, as it actually like changes in color like so much, and it doesn't actually like take the wide angle really useful, and you don't really want to seem like using the wide angle because you lose quality. And then there's the 2 megapixel macro camera, which is extremely unuseful. And there's the 5 megapixel depth sensor, which is totally useful, you know, like you can take like really good portrait shots. Ew. Because it's the same old boring camera. And don't get me wrong, the 108 megapixel is decent, and I even like added Realme's ads into my previous video called the smartphone scam, and like you can always like, I'll just put it up a link to it over here or here or something. So the thing is that it's nice and fine, but like 108 megapixels is good, but like the sensor quality and the sensor size also matters. And if you're already putting 108 megapixels into the main sensor, why can't you just upgrade like the ultra-wide as well? Because like ultra-wide, according to me, on mid-rangers suck as hell, and it's always been 8 megapixels for some reason, just for the ultra-wides. And I don't even have to complain about the 5 megapixel depth or like 2 megapixel macro, because they're already trashed, and you already have the photo samples in front of you right now, and you can already see it. So like you're already seeing like a banana which was stuck on that super macro lens. It doesn't really make a difference, and honestly it's just too boring. Other than that, it's just the normal usual with a 16 megapixel selfie camera, which has a Sony IMX471 sensor, and while the 108 megapixel on the back has a Samsung H2 sensor, the selfie camera is fine, except when like the portrait mode is very harsh. It just like whitewashes everything it can see. And there are also like the normal various Easter egg modes, which like, for example, you've got dual view mode, and then you've got like the normal panorama, slow-mo. They're all fine and fun. But also like there's another thing, is that because this thing has a 108 megapixel and like a quad camera setup, everything actually protrudes from the normal phone case itself, so it does have a lot of wobble, which actually the phone case lessens a bit, but at the same time that protects the camera as well, because it has like this extra layer more taller than the camera protrusion itself. And then the macro camera is again a disappointment. You can't really complain about it. It's all about like why people want to see like quad cameras on their phones. I've explained all about this in my smartphone camera scam video, and you guys can actually like look it up over here. And then there's the 50-watt wired charging, and again this is one of the things that have actually been reduced from the 7 Pro, but at the same time like Realme is actually given in a 65-watt charger, even though this thing can only do max 50 watts. So this is one of the other things that is actually cut down, but still 50 watts is still a great thing and it works fine. And the best thing about these budget phones is its battery. So the battery comes for a day assured that you do so much of gaming, still it comes for a day. It's a really good battery. It's a 4500 milliamp hour battery, totally solid. And I think like the microphone is fine, but still like you can also like see the bloatware on the top, so it's not gonna be like a good or like a polished experience than the others. Now this one is actually somewhat better than I expected, but at the same time like it's a very confusing and a very okay-ish phone. But okay, so to sum it up, what are the pros and cons of this phone? The pros are that it has a Snapdragon 720G, a Super AMOLED display, it has in-display fingerprint. I don't know how that sums as a positive, but we're supposed to say that over here. And then it has 50 watts of wired charging, and it has a very, very decent camera. The negatives, however, is that no 5G, and like people who actually want to keep this phone for more than 3 or 4 years might require it, even though 5G is absolutely like not necessary right now. And there's also like no high refresh rate, and there's that. And there is also like some off-axis rainbowing. If you saw my post on Instagram while I was actually like leaking some parts of this like the phone review that I'm gonna be posting. Family, it's just like the same components, but it's also like degraded from the 7 Pro, so you're actually better off buying the 7 Pro if you don't really like care about the camera that much. So bigger question here is, will you buy the phone? Will you buy this phone if you had the money, or like if you were to pay the whole MSRP for this phone? I'll leave you with that question. Thank you guys for watching this video. Comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. And thank you guys for supporting my reviews as well. And also like thank you very much for your overwhelming response to the earlier review that I did. And I hope that I also post more reviews just like this. Until then, this is yours truly, Shreyas Kalyan.